August 23rd, 2022 City of Broussard Council meeting. Please silence your cell phones, and if anyone from the audience would like to make a comment on an item listed on the agenda, please fill out a blue card located at the back of the room and turn it into our city clerk. Please rise for the pledge. Councilman Garrett, would you lead us in the prayer?
We, the members of the Broussard City Council, beg of thee, Almighty God, to enlighten our minds so our work will be just and fair in all things. Give us the courage and strength to fulfill our duties according to the laws of the land, and fulfilling also thy holy will on earth and in heaven. Amen. And please keep Mr. Michael Raven in your prayers. He had open heart surgery. I think he's doing pretty good. Or better.
Item 2.1, acceptance of the minutes of the August 9th, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion to accept?
I move. I second.
The minutes were supplied in the council's packet. Tina, do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
Council discussion?
Question?
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large.
Yay.
Motion carries.
Item 3.1, approval of the July 2022 financial report. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Second.
Our presenter tonight is our CFO, Karen Fontenot. Welcome, Karen.
Good evening, everyone. Your July financials are in your packet. We're gonna skip over June. Those are gonna be presented at the end of the year when we receive our audit. So I don't present those, Burton. We'll do that in December. Your July financials were emailed out last week. They're also in your packets. A couple of things. You're gonna see zero sales tax revenues for this month. The money that we received in July and the money we receive in August get recorded in fiscal year 2022 that just closed because they're based on the month of sales. So you will see nothing for this month in that line item. Just to report on those collections, we actually, the most recent deposit was the same month from the year before and 2 years ago, 9% ahead of last year, 32% higher than what we received in the same month in 2020. We're gonna actually finish the year 2% ahead of our amended budget. It was 14% ahead of the budget target we needed to meet for the month. So in our 2 1-cent sales taxes, you're $338,000 ahead of what we budgeted to finish. In our recreation sales tax, it was almost $85,000. So that was some good ending goals that we met last year. The other thing I do want to, if you tend to track our departmental expenses monthly, and I'm reporting on this because David Boney asked me about it earlier, so the monthly expenses that you're going to see in the month of July, they're going to be substantially lower than they would have been in the past because a lot of the expenses that we report in the month of July are actually for the month of June. So we pull them out of July, we record them in fiscal year 22. So you think, oh, we're going into June with some lower expenses. We're not. They're just reduced because of the timing of the months. Other than that, there's no other issues that I need to report on. Does anyone else have any other questions?
It's good to see the tax revenue continues to be strong, Karen. Thank you for that report.
Question.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6,
Yay.
at large.
Yay.
District 1,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 4.1, District 49 State Representative Blake Miguez is here to give us a legislative report. Welcome, Representative Miguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bork. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak here today. I just want to give an introduction of who I am. It's my first time speaking in front of Broussard City. My name is Blake Miguez. I'm the state representative for District 49. I'm originally from the village of Laurelville. I live in the town of New Iberia now. And in the House, I represent the Republican delegation. I'm the chairman. We have almost a near supermajority. We're one vote short of a supermajority now. Also serving the Appropriations Committee. It's been a while. I've been serving for about 7 years now and about 26 legislative sessions. So we've been through a lot of turmoil over the last 7 years. In my personal life, my beautiful wife, Ashley, and she's a public school teacher in Iberia Parish. We have 3 children. We got them all the way from a 20-year-old at UL. We've got a 17-year-old at Catholic High in Iberia, and I got my little 7-year-old. And I can tell you who runs the household. Red hair, blue eyes, 7 years old. And I know we're not supposed to make any political announcements, but I'll announce early on her behalf. In about 40 years from now, she'll be running for governor. So Miguez for governor about 2045. So keep her in mind if you're still voting. A little bit of fun stuff about me, and you guys might know my hobby. A lot of folks know me from my shooting career. I'm a former world and national champion pistol shooter. I was on a reality TV show about 10 years ago called Top Shot on the History Channel. I had the opportunity not only to showcase my shooting skills, but also to represent South Louisiana and show our culture to the rest of the nation and the world. I also have the honor of traveling to Thailand this year in November. I'm actually a member of the USA shooting team. I got chosen to compete against about 125 countries, about 2,500 shooters in November. And I'll go and I'll compete there. So I'm hoping that trip goes well. And I still actively shoot today. I don't do a lot of shooting during session. We've had a tremendous amount of sessions this year, but now it's my shooting season. I'll get out there and do some shooting. So what happened this year, I want to give a legislative recap. We've been in 4 legislative sessions this year. The first issue that we took up was redistricting. We came in February in a special session, and as you know, we redistrict the House, the Senate, our best seats, Public Service Commissioner, and the most controversial seat was Congressional District. The legislature made decisions on all those districts, and the governor signed 2 of the bills, which are very easy, which are the Public Service Commission and Bessie. He allowed the Senate and the House seats to become law. Then the congressional districts, he vetoed them. So the legislature came in for an override vote. We're successful in overriding the governor for the first time in a long time in the history of Louisiana. I'll skip over the regular session. We got into a court battle with the governor. I say we, the Attorney General represented us. Our Attorney General, Jeff Landry, did a great job in court. We had a district judge who was, I guess, a little biased and leaning left, and she decided to call the legislature and direct us back into a special session to redraw the maps. Congressional maps, which we ended up going to session, we decided not to redraw those maps. There was a little bit of a tussle in the Fifth Circuit. Eventually, it went up to the Supreme Court. Justice Alito came down and put a stay on the court case and allowed us to have our congressional districts, which we see that our congressional candidates have qualified under, and they'll run under. And I think what's going to happen is those cases will get merged with Alabama later this year, and they'll be decided later on. But the good news is that our congressional district stayed as a legislature, and your will spoke. That's what happened with redistricting. In the regular session, I can tell you that one thing was very different about the regular session. I've been out there, and I can tell you, being on the Appropriations Committee, we've had a lot of disagreements and philosophical differences with the governor over the years, mainly fighting over budget deficits. But this was the first year we had a budget surplus, excess. And I'll tell you this, $4.1 billion of extra revenue. I'll say that again, $4.1 billion. How do you say where'd that money all come from? Remember, we had a hurricane hit the southeast and southwest coast. We came through through a pandemic recovery where we had CARES Act dollars, ARPA dollars going through the process, a lot of different social federal programs. All this, I call them the Biden bucks. They're all coming down through our economy. They were rotating through the economy, and we had excesses, we had surpluses, we had additional revenues that are recognized. We had our Medicaid program matches, which were different under the FMAC program, which we had savings, and a tremendous amount of extra money. I can tell you, the times when you got a lot of extra money, a lot better than times you don't have a lot of money. A lot less fighting with the governor. The biggest argument that we had with the governor was over the $500 million that he wanted for the bridge in Baton Rouge. We all know that the bridge is important, and we like to see that bridge get rebuilt. But what else is important for people in Lacadian and our backyard? That's getting Highway 90 upgraded to I-49 standards. So we told the governor, you can have some money for there, but we want to get some money for I-49 with a little bit of bickering back and forth. Eventually, we're able to, through the capital outlay process and through the surplus bills, we were able to get $203 million additional funded towards Highway 90 I-49 upgrades. In addition to that, we had a mega projects bill, which allowed us to also bond those dollars out. So we can leverage those federal funds and hopefully get our Highway 90 upgraded to 49 standards before, like I said, my daughter runs for governor in 40 years. We hope to see it here soon. You're seeing a lot of dirt flipping here soon, here in Broussard. Back in 2018, we found the extra pot of money that was from the BP spill that was in a Medicaid trust fund. I know our Acadiana delegation worked very hard, and we worked to get our piece of the pie, and it was multiple hundreds of millions. I think it was about $160 million that we got, where we sent towards putting the project to do the overpass here at Acadiana Zoo, and also the service roads. That was 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it seemed like a lifetime ago. It's finally happening here today. So we're starting to see some things move. That was great infrastructure projects. We also had another important infrastructure project right at the Iberia base there. You know, we were one hurricane away from our whole criminal justice system just blowing away. You know, our sheriffs work very hard to get criminals off the street, but we have a district attorney that has to prosecute these folks, and they need evidence. Our crime lab is in dire straits. It remains that way. We're able to go through the capital outlay process. Our delegation worked towards funding a $20 million upgrade to our crime lab that services the 9-parish area with a $5 million match from the locals. That's becoming a reality. It's all great news. I can tell you that the legislature did some responsible things with the one-time money. We took about $170 million and put it into our rainy day savings account, moving that balance up to around $720 million. Remember, we had went through that rainy day savings account trying to balance mid-year shortfalls for the last 6 or 7 years. Finally getting that fund back up. We paid about $440 million towards hurricane debt payments that were due back from Hurricane Katrina. We took about $70 million towards an unfunded accrued liability. One of the most important things we did is we put $500 million into the unemployment trust fund. For all of our business owners out there, you know that our unemployment trust fund had $1.2 billion in it before the pandemic. During the pandemic, with all the unemployment payments going out, it became negative $400 million, borrowed from the federal government. We said, and what happens when the fund drops under $750 million? It's an automatic tax increase to business owners. The legislature in the emergency situation took immediate action, suspended that provision of the law for a 2 or 3 year period, so the business owners didn't see that tax increase. We took CARES Act dollars, we took ARPA dollars, and we kept trying to rebuild that fund. Now I can tell you the fund is self-sustaining, it's rebuilding on its own, and it's almost at around $800 million. So we're back on the right track there. You talk about local government and municipalities. There's around $450 to $500 million that got invested into the water sector program. A second round, we had about $400 million in the CARES Act. Our first ARPA payment, we did that last go round. We had our second round. You saw the applications go out recently. It's important to know about that. We made a few changes. To some of the rural areas that had difficulty with engineering work and working those things out, we put $5 million aside to help with those types of municipalities in rural areas. We also took another $20 million and put in a pot on the side to help matching funds. So when you put your water sector program in, that rural areas had an equal chance as some of the larger municipalities. So when you submitted your application for the second round, know that it's a retry. Those who got honorable mention the first go around didn't matter. It's a whole new pot of money, a whole new grant program. And I can tell you there's some miscalculations on certain municipalities and how they graded it. And a lot of their legislators got involved and got involved with the Division of Administration to correct some of those grading errors. And we hope that the money will go in disperse in a more equitable fashion going forward. So that's all the great news. I can tell you my gut feeling as a business owner, I think that going into next year, we may be in a situation where we have a little bit of extra money. I think this was a historic time this fiscal year, this past session. But I can tell you what the road down the road looks like. Our general fund, unfortunately, is growing at a pace that's a little bit faster than I'm comfortable with. We did great with the supplemental bills, but the problem is that the general fund is that our state general fund has grown by almost $1 billion. And I can tell you, when being on the appropriations committee, whatever the state general fund is, it never goes back. It's not like in your personal business. It always grows to some degree. So if our economy holds like it is and nothing changes, which you know is never the case, statutorily we'll have around a $650 to $800 million shortfall in 2025. And you say, why is that the case? How can you go from $4.1 billion extra money to being short $650 million? Well, I can tell you, it's because of two things. There's a temporary sales tax that's on the books that falls off in 2025. That's about $450 million of a fiscal note. There's another $200 million or so that when we heard our constituents talk about infrastructure and they wanted roads fixed, we took money from the vehicle sales tax revenue and we took it out the general fund and we started transitioning into the transportation sub-trust fund, asphalt, not salaries and retirement. That's about $650 million there. So that's only 2 or 3 years away. So if the legislature doesn't take action immediately to start slowing the growth of their general budget, then we could be facing a situation where our next governor, who I know is going to come in vibrantly, wanting to change Louisiana, and in his honeymoon period, I say the honeymoon period is the first few years of his term, he can make the most difference to change the future for our kids. I don't want that governor having to deal with a $1 billion shortfall like this recent governor had to deal with. I want to move in Louisiana in the right direction. So I think I've seen members traveling around the state, they're meeting to see how we can take action now by slowing the growth of our general fund to be prepared for those times. But the warning goes out same to local government. We're all in this together. If we have one-time dollars and we get extra revenue, we're going to continue fixing roads, continue improving our infrastructure. But if we get in a situation where our economy starts turning down, then we're going to have to look at our general budget and sort of and have it take a measured approach there. So that's a little bit on the funding side of things. I'll touch on a few social issues that we ran across. Right to life. Roe versus Wade, we heard the rumors and it became true. It's finally got overturned in the Supreme Court. The legislature was prepared for that. We updated all of our trigger laws with certain exceptions to make sure that when Roe versus Wade was overturned, that abortion would become illegal in Louisiana and we wouldn't hold mothers accountable. The pro-life movement never was about holding mothers accountable. It was about holding these abortion clinics accountable. And that's what we did. And I can tell you today, it's a fight in court. Our Attorney General is fighting those issues right now with success. We've got some local governments on the other side of the state that are being resistant. But the abortion clinics, there are no elective abortions being conducted in the state of Louisiana because of what the legislature took their action. Women's fairness in sports. That was a big issue we fought with the governor the last 2 or 3 years. I can tell you, we talked about my little girl earlier. What's the most important thing in this whole wide world to all of us? Our daughters and our granddaughters. And we want to make sure that they can compete on an equal playing field. I can tell you, a biological male that decides to switch and then to turn into a female to compete against female sports, they're on an uneven playing field. They've got a physical advantage. And I can tell you, statistically speaking, over 90% of the CEOs across this nation who are female play competitive sports at some point in their lifetimes. Career opportunities, scholarship opportunities, the confidence level that our young girls need to grow up to be successful. The legislature took action twice. The governor vetoed it. With some amendments, I'm proud to say that the governor finally gave in and he signed that into law. That was a big win for women across this state and for our young daughters and our granddaughters. I'll talk about one of the things that I like to talk about, and that's guns. As you know, I'm one of the biggest pro-Second Amendment legislators at the Capitol, being a champion shooter. I work well with the NRA, the Louisiana Shooting Association, all the other 5 organizations at the Capitol. My favorite bill from the session was constitutional carry for veterans. And what that did was it allowed any 21 or older active military or former military who was a law-abiding citizen, who was not otherwise prohibited from carrying a firearm, can now have constitutional carry rights in Louisiana as of August 1st. You know what that means? It means that if you're a law-abiding citizen, you served our country and you sacrificed for our country, and you're the most well-trained citizen on our streets fighting for us, you don't need government's permission to carry a firearm. We already know that open carry is legal in Louisiana. Everybody can do that. But concealed carry, putting the jacket over, it's illegal unless you go through a permit process, pay a fee, get a background check, get trained, and ask government for permission. Our veterans no longer need to ask for permission. So that was a huge win. We had some issues with school safety. After the Uvalde shooting, I can tell you that everybody started becoming concerned about our schools. I co-authored a resolution. I'm hoping to have the report September, October with my seatmate about our school systems reporting back and telling us, what are your recommendations how we can improve school security? Tell us about your security protocols. Is there any gap in your security programs? Is there any funding needs? Is there anything we can do to improve school resource officers in your schools? We're hoping to get information back. I know that the state Senate has already had some conversations about potentially taking teachers who volunteer or public school administrators who voluntarily want to go through a post-certification training program, maybe putting legislation in place to allow them to be SROs. Because I can tell you, when there's firearms within law-abiding citizens' hands, it deters these violent criminals from attacking our most vulnerable places like our children. We want to prevent those incidents from happening here in Louisiana. We had a number of other bills that dealt with pro-business, to helping our veterans deal with mental PTSD issues. We went through a ton of issues, but in the light of how much time that I've taken so far, I'll conclude with those points. But I want to tell you that I'm happy to serve. I'm happy to serve in the House. We lead a strong Republican delegation. We're going into a fiscal year. We're hoping to make some more movement towards a tax reform and a business-friendly environment. And we hope to move towards a situation where we can get a new Republican governor in place. I'm confident that we'll go into reelection with supermajorities in both the House and the Senate. And we'll work for the next 10 years to fix Louisiana, to improve it for our children, because our greatest problem right now is the out-migration of our children. We used to, I can tell, I'm from New Iberia, and I hear a lot of people used to complain, when we lose them to Youngsville and Broussard. Well, that's not the complaint anymore, guys. Our children are going to Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida because their business environment is better. Their economy is better. The only thing stopping us from being the best that we can be is our legislative process and our government leadership. We got some of the best things right underneath our feet, natural resources, some of the best culture. We got some of the best foods. We got the best music. Hunting and fishing, it's sportsman's paradise. The only thing that's holding us back is ourselves, guys, and our history. But we can make a difference for our kids. We can make our environment better for our future here by electing the right folks on both the local level, the state legislature. Most importantly, we need the right governor, right, Jeff? We need the right governor. So with that said, guys, I'll let y'all know that my office is always open. Pick up the phone, give me a call, send me an email. I see y'all, some of y'all have y'all pens out. I'd like to give you my cell phone number if y'all need. It's if you can write this down, it's 3. Information if I don't already have it. I tell you what, I ask you one thing. If you need something, call me. But do me a favor. If I don't answer, make sure and leave a voicemail or text message, because I live in a rural area with a steel roof on my house and don't always go through. And sometimes we're working hard in the Capitol in the basement. We don't have good reception at Republican office. So do that. I'll always be in contact. I'm open. My office is always open, you guys. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'd be happy to hear about any challenges y'all are facing, because we want to help improve y'all city.
Blake, I got a two-part question for you.
Go ahead.
Two things you touched on, abortion and the Second Amendment. There's a judge in New Orleans that says he is going to allow abortion in the Orleans parish. Where do we stand with that?
We've ran across a number of different issues with New Orleans not wanting to do things, okay? And we saw our Attorney General take an initiative just recently in the Bond Commission saying, guys, if you don't want to enforce the law and the legislative will, then we're not going to send you the funds that you need from state government. The federal government does it to us all the time to enforce some of what their initiatives are. The legislature's just taking that action, but I can tell you, what right do they have not to enforce the laws that are on the books? And that's not only coming from the district attorney, that's coming from the local city council that passed the resolution, and I think their local law enforcement. So the city of New Orleans, if it wants to be a part of Louisiana and wants to continue getting funds from the state legislature, they're gonna have to follow the same laws that you all have to follow. I'm sure you got some complaints about the legislation that we pass sometimes. It's not always perfect for your city, but it is the law of the land, it's the will of the people, and it's the legislative process, and they gotta follow it, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Second question on the Second Amendment. I don't know if you heard that our Attorney General in Washington, D.C. has demanded right now from the Attorney General of the state of Missouri. He wants a list of all the concealed permit people in that state that have concealed permits. He wants a list of their names. But right now, the Missouri Attorney General says, no, that's private information. Do you see that trickling down? Has that been requested in Louisiana?
I haven't seen
Because
that
we
issue.
knew that was coming from Biden. We knew it was coming.
I haven't seen
And
that
it's here.
issue in Louisiana yet, but we've had some conversation, and I've talked to the Press Association. I've talked, because they always is big on public records requests and how we can maybe pass some legislation to prohibit that information from being released. Because I know, and I can't remember the city, it could have been New York or Chicago, one of these liberal cities that got released. And then what happens is they start targeting law-abiding citizens. I can tell you, some of the folks in some of these urban areas, they don't understand the Second Amendment. They don't understand about our gun rights. I had a legislator one time from Baton Rouge ask me, isn't it concealed carry permit holders are the ones that are murdering all these people? I said, ma'am, excuse me. Let me inform you, you're totally incorrect. Then I went through all the different things that these individuals have to go through. But I can tell you, the Supreme Court weighed in recently in the Broussard case. Remember the Heller case back in 2009 and 8 when they said that we had a right of self-defense in your home? The Supreme Court just went further. Clarence Thomas said that now your right to self-defense doesn't end at the end of your driveway. You have a right to carry in public. That was important because it overturned the proper cause issue that they had in the New York law. But what is more important that the Supreme Court said to Hawaii and New Jersey and California, your two-pronged test that you have, that you weighed public safety and all these, and then what you've made up is totally wrong. Throw it out the window. If you want to find out if a law is constitutional or not based on the Second Amendment, look to the original context and the intentions of our founding fathers in the Second Amendment. That's how I read the Second Amendment. I'm sure that's how you read it too. So all these different courts, these federal courts across the nation, are going to have to go and reinterpret that law. But I can tell you, some of these folks in like New York, they're so gung-ho infringing upon our Second Amendment rights. They went back in, they passed more cumbersome rights. So this is something that we're always going to be in a consistent cycle trying to fight to protect our Second Amendment. But I can tell you, since I've been in the legislature, I've fought to kill every anti-gun bill that's come across, and I've been a co-author. I've helped write every pro-gun bill because I understand the importance of the Second Amendment. It is the amendment that protects all of our other constitutional rights, and I believe in the original intent of our Constitution.
So we haven't been instructed here like Missouri. You haven't seen that filter to Louisiana?
No, I haven't
When
seen
they're
it, but
requesting that.
I can tell you that that'd be something we'd be totally opposed to, and I'd be happy to work with you in this upcoming
Yeah.
session if we can work with the Press Association to make sure we maintain their right to public information, by at the same time trying to the constitutional right of trying to protect private information. If we can find that balance, if it's not already taken care of in statute, I'd be happy to author a bill like that to make sure it's taken care of.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, I thank y'all so much. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the council so much for the opportunity to speak today. And like I said, y'all please send me y'all contact info and reach out. Any help I can, anything you need, I'd be happy to help. Thank y'all for the opportunity and the honor to serve. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for being here tonight and giving us a report. Item 4.2, Cooley Fortune Project. So tonight, our Public Works Department and our Engineering Department is going to give us a somewhat brief report on a project we're about to start, improving drainage in Cooley Fortune, which will be over time the most aggressive drainage project that Broussard has ever undertaken, but we're taking it in stages. So I'll turn it over to our group here, Walter and Mel. Thank you.
Well, the mayor asked me to give you a briefing on this. This is something we've been looking at for a while. And I kind of take some of y'all back a little bit. Prior to the 2016 flood, our councilman at that time, Ray Bork, decided it would be a good idea to have a drainage committee, and he formed a drainage committee. And the project that resulted out of that was Cypress Bayou Lateral 2, which drains Hulan Road, Sugar Trace Subdivision, Sugar Trace South, portions of Cypress Crossing, Deer Meadow Village, Lexington Falls, and Page Place. And that's one of the biggest drainage projects that we had ever done up till that point. This was before 2016. After 2016, the spotlight really came onto drainage, and the council got really aggressive about it. And so since 2016, we've spent $3 million on drainage improvements in the city, which for a city our size is pretty significant. We also, you guys funded, and Mel runs 3 full-time drainage crews. All they do is maintain the drainage. And give you a little idea, after 2016, what we did was we put X's on a map of where we saw flooding. And after we looked at that map, we realized that the concentration had to do with Ridgeview outfall, which you guys funded, and we finished a year or so ago. So this is the biggest thing that we haven't touched yet. And as we move forward with this project, it'll be the biggest drainage project that I think Broussard has ever done. So kind of walk you through some of this. What we're planning to do right now, we have servitudes acquired from the area. This is where Cooley Fortune outfalls into the swamp near Jeanette Farms. We have servitudes from that point all the way to Highway 90. What we are planning to do in this part, in this phase of it, the project will be self-performed. Mel's crews are going to do the work. And I'll let him get into what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do it. But at this point in time, the biggest problem we have on big drainage projects is first, remove all the debris and remove enough to be able to get to the channel. Sometimes we can't even get to it. So what we would call this is a cut and snag project. We're gonna pull all the, whatever is trash or trees or whatever is in there. We're gonna pull that out, remove obvious silt banks. And these types of projects are considered maintenance, and we're kind of hitting it like that because we'd have to do it anyway with a major drainage improvement project, but we don't really need a core permit because it's maintenance. So we're gonna get everything cleaned up, and then later on, and I'll go through that as we go, how we're gonna approach this and what we're gonna do down the line. There we go. It's just a little different view on a simpler map, but just to give you some idea of the size of the project, from the outfall to Morgan Street, the channel is 21,500 linear feet. And if you prefer miles, that's about 4 miles a channel. Not on me. Let's see. That's the red area is the drainage area, what we call the drainage area, the catchment area that this particular channel drains. And other little facts, within that area, this project will impact 1,110 residences, approximately 200 businesses, and is within a 2,470 acre drainage area, which is about 3.9 square miles. There are 10 crossings that we've identified on this channel, whether they be street crossings or culverts in the ditch. I call them crossings. There's 10 crossings, 3 of which we know are private. There may be some that we haven't identified yet because we can't see them on aerial photography. They're in the trees or whatever. So what we're gonna do to evaluate this is Mel is going in, they're gonna start cleaning the channel up and also cleaning areas so that we can access the channel, which is just as important. While he's doing that, and that by itself will improve drainage significantly, but while he's doing that, we're gonna model the entirety of the channel, and we're gonna do what we call value engineering. And what value engineering is, in the computer model, we can take an old bridge out or old crossing out, put a new one in, and say, okay, what does that do to flooding? Does it help? Does it not really make a difference? So that'll be the second part of it. And also, when we get to that phase of it, we're gonna establish a good grade, because I guarantee you the channel probably on average has 3-4 foot of silt in its length. Whenever you're in an area with a lot of agriculture, we get a lot of siltation quickly. One good thing that we see from urbanization is our channels don't silt up as much because you're not turning the dirt as much. So as we get subdivisions, they're more sensitive to drainage problems, but our channel maintenance starts to get a little bit easier. And I went, and just to give you an idea, there we go. This is at Jeanette Farms, which is kind of the end of the project. And to kind of give you a little idea of terminology that I'm using, when I say Jeanette Farms downstream, that means the direction I'm looking. This can get confusing because if I'm looking at a structure and I'm looking downstream, I'm actually looking at the upstream part of the structure. So when I say downstream or upstream, that means the direction I'm looking. So you can see out in the distance, you can see the swamp area that this outfalls to. And then this is John F. Arms looking upstream. And you might have a little difficulty picking out the channel, but I'll show you with the laser pointer. It's right here where all the trees are. So I imagine it hasn't been cleaned in a good while. I'm 60 years old. I don't remember any of this ever being cleaned. So this may be the first crack we take at it in a long time. This is a shot down the channel looking downstream towards a swamp. A shot looking upstream at the Jean F. Arms location. This is the Bayou Tortue Road Bridge looking downstream. And if you'll notice, it's actually a very nice bridge. I don't know when it was done, but it's not that old. Yeah. This is looking upstream at Bayou Tortue Road, looking upstream. And then this is looking downstream. And you can see we got a good bit of vegetation. We don't really know siltation at this point. That's going to be something we'll get to down the line. This is North Girard Road Bridge looking downstream. That bridge actually looks like it's in pretty good shape from what I saw. And then this is looking upstream from North Girard Road and then looking downstream from North Girard Road. This is at Highway 90 looking downstream. We're looking upstream at the structure at Highway 90. I'm pretty sure this is a very old structure. Those I-49 improvements that our representative was talking about, when they upgrade this to I-49 standards, that's going to be improved. This is Highway 90 structure looking downstream. It's kind of caught in the shadow here. And then looking upstream from Highway 90. And right beyond this tree here is the RV park, Jason's place. Yeah. Okay, now we're at Main Street. We're opposite side of the street from Arsenault Park. And you can kind of see we got some stuff in front of that structure. That structure is actually scheduled to be changed when we do Main Street Phase 3. And the budget for that is about $600,000 to modernize and change that structure. It's woefully undersized and it's not at the right grade. So we're going to lower it and make it quite a bit larger.
That particular structure, I can remember being out in some huge rain event we had, and the upstream side, water was about cresting over the road. Walter and I, maybe Mel was there, and when you go on the other side, it's a 3-chamber drainage system. Water was coming out of that thing, probably shooting out 25, 30 feet, and could not release the water on the other side of the bridge. It's just old, cannot handle the flow to what we need anymore, and it has gotten in danger of washing out during hurricanes or big rain events. So, but that is why it is targeted to be changed in phase 3 improvements.
This is also one of I've been doing what I do for almost 40 years, and this is the only time I've seen what we call supercritical flow in the state of Louisiana. Supercritical flow, if you go to Colorado and you see the rapids, that's supercritical flow. And we actually had a hydraulic jump, which is where flow transitions for subcritical flow to supercritical. I've never seen that in Louisiana in nature. So what that's telling us is that we got a gigantic amount of velocity going through that. And what causes water to pile up is velocity. The higher velocity, the more it'll pile up. So it's telling us that that thing is way too small.
And incidentally, just to touch on, until just recently, this was within DOT's jurisdiction. We just got this road transferred to the city
That's a very good point.
lately.
It's ours now. So.
Right.
Well, that should help Sugar Drive. They flooded those houses 4 or 5 times. It should help Sugar
It's gonna help that entire area, and one of the places we're interested in helping is the Dustin Circle area. We think this is gonna give some relief to that area, which floods. How much, we don't know. We will know once we start doing the modeling. This is the same location looking upstream, and this is looking towards Arsenal Park. And one other thing we're talking about, in Arsenal Park is now our park. And we're toying with a plan, and I've already done some preliminary engineering to create an inline stormwater management pond in Arsenal Park, which would give us a nice, pretty water feature. And what we found in doing previously is that inline stormwater management, where we just widen the channel and make it into a pond, has a pretty dramatic effect on the drainage upstream of it. It tends to drop the water surface. So all of this is going to be in conjunction with a lot of things happening at once to improve drainage. This is Albertson's structure, the structure under Albertson's looking downstream. My gut instinct is that this structure is properly sized, but once we start doing the engineering analysis, we may have to lower the grade on it to make it more effective. But we're not gonna know that for a while. We'll come to the council with those kind of recommendations once we've done all the engineering work. This is Albertson's channel looking downstream, and then Albertson's channel looking upstream, looking back towards Toy Box. Okay, Toy Box actually has a little bridge going into it, and that's the bridge looking downstream. Pretty clean channel right there. And then this is Toy Box channel looking upstream, and you can see the railroad bridge in the picture. And this is the Toy Box looking downstream. Again, the railroad bridge looking downstream, and then the railroad bridge looking upstream. And this is where things start to get kind of dicey, you might say. Here we get to St. Depours. I have not done an engineering analysis on St. Depours, but I can pretty much guarantee we need to change it. It's very small. When you just look at the size of the opening compared to the size of the opening of everything else, this is way smaller. And then there's also a little dam there that was put in years and years ago to hold some water for cows. We're gonna clean all that out, and I believe the mayor has agreement from the family. They're good with that. Okay, and you can kind of see this. Here's St. Depours looking upstream, and you can see there's not much channel left. It's all silted up. And what happens when you build a dam and you have an undersized, you slow the velocity upstream, and siltation tends to fall there. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. St. Depours looking downstream. There is a natural swamp area downstream of that. This is going to be an area that is going to, we'll probably need to get a Corps permit, because I'm pretty sure this is wet. And from looking at the maps, it's a little natural swamp. So that's going to be an area we'll have to be careful working in and have some Corps approvals. And then here's St. Depours, kind of a high view looking up, and I can't see for the glare, but you can see the channel's kind of the green stripe here, except it's not really much of a channel anymore. It's all silted up and full of, yeah. I'm calling this the Shannon Pond. This is where Rusty Shannon lived. There's a new owner. I don't want to disrespect him, but I think everybody would be familiar. He has a little inline pond, and just by my eye, these structures look probably pretty close to the right size. But again, we're going to evaluate all this as we go forward with the engineering work. And I spoke to the new owner, and he's all about it. He said this pond's almost completely silted up. He said there's only maybe a foot of water in the pond at this point. This is Shannon Pond looking upstream, and that's his upstream channel, and you'll notice that handsome devil standing right there. This is Shannon Pond downstream, looking toward Shannon Pond in the downstream. And again, those structures look like they're pretty good size. This is Shannon Pond looking upstream, and you can see we go down to a single culvert there. And then here's Main Street. Morgan, I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure this structure needs to be changed. Again, we'll do the proper engineering and give you an analysis. This is Morgan Street looking upstream. Yeah, at Dustin. Yeah, I think Dustin's here. And then this is Morgan Street. I kind of got some elevation, and Bart Anderson lives over here. We're looking at the channel. Now, a few years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago, Boyd asked the city to assist him with that. We did the core permitting for him, and then he hired a contractor to clean the channel. And then just kind of an aerial view of Morgan Street. So this project, we're starting modestly with cleaning the banks and the channel of debris. But that's the first thing you have to do. And the goal is to get all of that done while we're doing the kind of the detailed engineering analysis. And with that, I'll kind of turn it over to Mel.
Yeah, it's, like Walter said, there's a whole lot of vegetation along this cooling. So we're gonna start at the bottom toward the swamp and clear the vegetation first so that they can get in and do what they need to do. And then while we're doing that, they'll be doing the engineering, and then they'll provide us with a slope, if you will, as far as elevations. And then once we're done with the clearing, we'll go back and we'll clean the cooling. The biggest part of this project, in my opinion, is clearing the vegetation, because it's Walter's 60 years old. I'm not quite that old, but you know, he said he doesn't never remember it being cleared out. And I believe it, because there's some huge trees there. So that's gonna be the lion's share of the project, is clearing these trees out. And if y'all remember, y'all allocated $60,000 in this year's budget to rent equipment to begin doing that. So we're gonna start on that part of it. And just to, you know, my estimation is to get to Highway 90, it'll probably take us about 6 to 8 months of clearing. And then, you know, it's gonna be a multi-year project. It's not gonna by any means be done quickly, because there's a lot to do there, but it will be a huge undertaking, but we're up for it. We'll take care of it, and it will be better. Our drainage will be a lot better for it.
And just to give you an idea, the structures that we're pretty sure that are gonna have to be changed, we're in excess of $2 million just for crossings. And we may have more than that. We don't know yet. But I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna argue with me. St. DePorres probably needs to be changed. A bridge is about $1 million. Another 700,000 for Main Street. So that's not counting, you know, Mel's gonna do this cleaning and get rid of this debris, but all that debris has to be hauled out and put somewhere. When we get to the point of changing our hard crossings, that's usually the big bucks. But if you talk about removing, you know, on average, a couple feet of silt along, when I say 4 miles, I believe is what I told you. You gotta, when you dig it up, you gotta truck it somewhere and get rid of it. And so what we're doing is setting the project up for those next steps at this point.
Right, and obviously wherever we can, we're gonna distribute the silt in place, but some places, obviously, we won't be able to do that because we'll be in close quarters. Where we start in the swamp and at the, on the Girard Ranch, they'll probably want us to spread that silt out there. It'll help them with their agricultural projects. So, you know, we're gonna be able to speed up some places it'll slow down. We'll just have to take it day by day and move forward.
we'll take any questions if y'all got them.
The way you decide the project is the best way, in my opinion, for the city to handle it, because instead of studying this thing for another 6 to 12 months and then come to the council and say, we'd like to spend $3 or $4 million on one drainage project, to take it over multiple budget years and in multiple steps, the way you're describing, is what makes it affordable for us. This will be an enormous project. We have a lot of talent working for our Public Works Department. That's what makes it possible. That crew never says no, but the council was good enough to supply them with the money to rent the equipment they need, and they're gonna handle it, during their day-to-day work. Mel has been kind of targeting the time where he can dedicate a crew to start working in there. But this gives the council more of an overall view of what's about to start happening, where they're about to start working. But it's gonna take a while, but we are committed. Broussard will be committed to cleaning drainage. This is a project, as you said, that has not been touched. And, I'll say it, in my opinion, the reason that drainage problems occurred in 2016 is simply because of lack of maintenance. And we've been on that journey since then to get us back into a workable position where every canal in Broussard has been hit once, and then it just becomes regular maintenance. But I was on the project when we cleaned after 16, and we cleaned the coulee around Bootsy Morbont's property. I'll never forget being there. Maintenance work, not reworking a coulee, anything, maintenance work. It had been so long since that canal had been cleaned. I went out and I met Shane. He was operating a piece of equipment. The pile of dirt was as big as a house, and it was a half a mile long. And that was just putting the coulee back where it was supposed to be. We're not going to do that anymore in Broussard. We are going to have workable drainage systems. And I appreciate the council supporting that and funding public works and the projects we've done. So thank you.
And Mayor, one thing, we've profiled ditches where we measure the bottom elevation of a ditch and come back and measure it a year or two later. You can see it doesn't happen everywhere, but you can see in some places where you'll have a 2-foot silt deposit within a year or two because of the, if you think about it, plow up the fields, it rains and all that stuff washes into so maintenance never goes away. It does.
It does. Well, Cypress Bayou had been cleaned. Mel's crew's hitting it every year. Silt plugs build up, etc. Every drainage project we've done, they have been back every year since then to make sure it's workable. But we still have a lot of agriculture in the town, in the city, and it affects that.
Absolutely it does, but we find that going back every year, it generally, it accumulates first where the drains come into the coulee. So if we can nip it in the bud right there, it didn't give it a chance to spread down the coulee. So we found that works pretty good, just as maintenance. And it doesn't leave you a huge undertaking like we have right here if it gets away from you. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And as we clean them, that's what we do. We just keep revisiting them every year and just keep removing those silt plugs. This particular coulee, I don't think is going to be as much of a problem when it comes to silt plugs because you don't have as much agricultural activity around it. More to the south, we've seen that, there's cane fields and stuff. So you see it more there, but this hadn't been cleaned in forever. And once it's cleaned, we're going to just revisit it every year and just keep it flowing like it should.
There's no action to be taken on this item. It was simply a report to give the council and the audience the information. That was our last item on the agenda. Thank you, gentlemen, for the report. Meeting adjourned. Please have a good night and drive safely. Thank you for joining us.